Watch me on Kick, dude. What are you doing? Well, by God. Been following this channel for 1 month, 28 days, 19 hours, and 37 minutes, oh son. Watching this channel for a combination of 4 days, 7 hours, and 5 minutes. How does that make you feel? Because personally, that makes me feel good. Like an OG. Hell yeah. All right. So I don't think Alan's in here yet. So I need somebody to do me a favor. I need somebody to put exclamation mark clip. It's the same way that you write watch time and follow age. Just clip instead of anything else. Because I need to see if something works. Oh. What did it do? View full thread. What does that do? Oh, it shares it. Because I need to see if something works. So it clips the last 30 seconds. Oh. What did it do? Instead of anything else. Your brother is the GOAT. Dude, I love my brother dearly. But that's pretty cool, though. That works. I appreciate that, Bradley. I know now for a fact that that works. But it only, like I said, it only does the last 30 seconds. I don't know how to change that duration. So, did you like what you got? I didn't. I'm about to say I didn't get to see it. So I don't know what it looks like yet, but I'll be sure after the stream or whatever to go on there and check it out because I'm sure that you'll have it set up. I know he said that something about he did 3 characters for you, and each one of them was in a different style. I want to say that he said one of them was like the Naruto style animation. One of them was JJK animation, and one of them was something else. I told him, I said, dude, that's fucking dope, dude. Oh, it's amazing. Hell yeah, dude. I'm glad, man. He also said that he did your handle, what he said the way you wanted it, which I knew you wanted it. Like, it's me, you had talked about it. He said he had put like the multiple social medias, but he had done it in a anime kind of font. And I told him, I was like, dude, that's cool, dude. That's unique. But like I said, though, I haven't actually gotten to see any of it yet. But I will make sure to like check it out after the stream and stuff's over with tonight. I'll send them over to you on Snap. Hell yeah. Um, who's all in here right now? I know there's a few people in here. There's about 5 people in here, but I don't know who's all in here. I appreciate you, Bradley. Hey, Michael, what's going on, buddy? How you doing? Sent. All right, let's check this out here. He went hard as hell. That's what I'm talking about. We're watching the video today. We will watch a video today. What I want to do first, before we fully like jump into a hold on a minute. All right. Anyway, so before we like fully get started today, one of the things that I would like to bring up to y'all and like talk to y'all about specifically before we get started is the unfortunate mismanage of Earth. And I know what you're thinking, you know. Earth has been completely mismanaged. All right, so what society was it that was progressed far enough? Heidi, what society was it that was progressed far enough to actively have someone in charge? Like, what was the first? Uh, Akkadian Empire? Is that how you say that? Akkadian Empire? There's a reason why NASA quit looking in the ocean and started looking to get off this planet. So I guess that's how you say it. The Akkadian Empire. Anyway, they were like the first like early leadership, like civilization, and they fucked up. They were the first ones to get together and collectively say, "Hey, let's put some people in charge of like what we do instead of like all collectively banding together to figure out what it is that we do. We put like either a select amount of people or one person in charge." What was their leadership? How many people was in charge? I appreciate you for the follow, brother. Random fact. Did you know that the flushable toilet was invented in 1596? Can you join my Discord server? Hold on a minute. Trying to prove a point about something here. Okay, so their government was a monarchy. So like I said, their government was a monarchy. It was like a divine kingship or whatever. The government ruled. There was one man in charge, basically. Blah 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 blah. It was like a single individual. They was the first ones to ever fuck up by putting one man in charge instead of allowing there to be like I don't think a government should allow one man to be in charge. There should be multiple people in charge making a decision, and it should always be an odd number. That way, there's always like a tiebreaker, and that guy that's a tiebreaker can't favor one or the other side. He has to be somebody that literally, like, has his agreements with both sides and disagreements with both sides. He can't be somebody that favors one side because then that lopsides it. The tragic mismanagement of Earth would be when humans decided to put one man in charge and then somehow down the line started doing everything in their power that they could to focus on getting something that we made, which is money, and fighting over ridiculous things like oil and this and that and that and this, instead of like collectively banding together to figure out how to get the fuck off this planet before the entire race gets wiped out. You know what I mean? You want to play soccer with me? Sure. You passed the test. He was worried you was a Terminator. That's the only reason why I didn't respond to the Discord thing. I apologize about that. Because Terminators don't reply. Uh, anyway, you know, we just, I just think that as a random thought of mine for the day that I'm over here thinking about is the fact that humans royally fucked up. We did not focus on any kind of progression towards the future. We just focused on what was going on here. I don't mean to be off topic, Bubby, and I apologize, but tonight's our first night in the new house, O'Shun. Hell yeah, brother. I had his profile pulled up and finger was hovering over the band button. It's terrible, guys. Y'all gotta give it just a second, O'Shun. No offense to you, Bubby. Can you join the Discord? What Discord are you in? I don't I'm not completely sure about what you're asking me there. I can't send the link. Do we know each other? Like an in-game know each other or something? Because I'm confused about what's going on here. No. I don't know, like... What's the why do you want me to come into your Discord? What's the point there? I don't understand. And I do have links turned off because I don't do the whole bot thing. Why not? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just trying to figure out like what's going on here. Like I got way off topic. I lost complete like track of I got like complete off topic of what I was talking about. I was talking about the tragic mismanagement of Earth. That's what I was talking about. I appreciate that, Austin. It just I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that humans we made it this far, did all the shit that we did to climb to the top of the food chain, and then once we got to the top of the food chain, we decided to start fighting one another for oil and like pointless things instead of trying to focus on trying to leave this planet to go colonize another one to like ensure the survival of human race. Behold, I am man, bearer of trash and nuclear weapons. That's kind of what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like to be a human. I didn't mean to bring you off topic. Oh, son, I'm sorry. You didn't bring me off topic, dude. I was just trying to. A lot of things during this brought me off topic, but I promise you, it wasn't just you. But I don't know why. That's like I've been thinking about that, like how mismanaged Earth was, you know. It was looking good for a hot minute, dude. Like when we was going to the moon and shit, it was looking good, and then all of a sudden now it just don't look good at all. I don't know what's going on right now. I feel like the whole world's fucking confused, though, son. Father. Oh, shun. What are you doing? I haven't really thought about that topic much. I just try to survive in life and save and have some spending money and get through school. I'm here. I'm glad you're here. Don't worry. I don't think a lot of people do. I don't think a lot of people think about that topic because that's why like the topic's never been like brought up. Like, what the hell are we doing? Why do we have one person in charge that has that much power? What are we doing? What is the human race doing? I mean, one guy can decide that he ain't feeling it, and the whole world's gone, dude. I'm not even talking about our government in specific. I'm talking about the human race in general. One guy can decide that he's not feeling it and plunge the entire world into sudden chaos and completely ruin everybody's life. One guy. What the fuck were humans thinking? Do away with all of them? That's what I'm saying, man. What's wrong here? And by the way, I'm not suicidal in any kind of way. And I do not own a gun. Or ropes. I don't own no ropes either. I don't live in a 2-story house. Can't jump out of no window. I don't fly planes. I don't drink and drive. I don't drink, actually. My brakes work fine. You know. God probably looks at us like, dude, what are you doing? Probably. My wife does love me very much. What was we thinking when we invented taxes? I don't know, because I'm pretty sure back in the day in the United States, I thought we worked off of like external taxes that weren't on the people. I thought they came from like tariffs on other countries. It was like external taxes on other countries bringing in their goods, and then the American people didn't get taxed. And I thought that was most of the point for, yeah, we did. I thought that was most of the point for us, like, beefing with the British in the first place. And now we become one of the most taxed countries in the fucking world, if not the most taxed country in the world. And it's insane, man. The rev started because of taxes. You ever seen that episode of Futurama whenever they're like holding back Benjamin Franklin? I'm pretty sure that's who it is. And like he's like clawing and slobbering at the mouth trying to attack that British guy, and he's like, "I'll kill you, you British bastard." I feel like our founding fathers feel that way right now about our current government. The reason we made our own country was because we were getting taxed and we got nothing from the taxes. Because they raised taxes on one specific product, and we revolted against the British. Oh, bro, they would drop a nuke, LOL. They taxed 2% on one specific product, and we started foaming at the mouth, O'Shane. Oh, man, like, yeah. So now that I've said it like 3 times, and you've heard it over and over again, and you're starting to think about like how we're the most taxed country in the world, and how America is nothing of what it was supposed to be in the beginning, and how the entire world is at the mercy of one guy's fingertip for almost every country on the planet. And the fact that we use our scientists to build weapons to annihilate one another instead of using them to like collectively come together, work together, and figure out how to get the race off this planet so we can colonize other planets so our species can survive. Now that you've heard me say it over and over and over again, does it not feel like the Earth has been tragically mismanaged? Does it not feel like we fucked up? Like since the Acadia Empire, I think that's what it was called. And whenever I looked it up, does it not feel like we fucked up? I don't know. I don't know why all that was on my mind today. I was just thinking about it, and I was like, oh my goodness. Money isn't the root of all evil. Now, it's what you do with it that makes it evil. Money can be used for good and or bad. But 90% of the time, it's used for bad. That's why it's referred to the root of all evil. Capitalism is the root of all evil. I think government in general is the root of all evil. They need to super tax the shit. They super tax that shit, or the shit they used to make meth in communities where I live would crumble. Google said Illinois' taxes usually exceed 15 to 16% of an Illinois resident's annual income. Fuck that. Did you also know that Kentucky's one of the poorest states in the United States? The love of money is the root of all evil. Dude, I made $7,000 last year and paid over $12,000 in taxes, or $71,000 last year and paid over $12,000 in taxes. Dude, it is over. That's why I'm getting the fuck out of Illinois. I don't blame you, dude. I don't know, man. Every day I wake up and I look. Yeah, we like 48th LMAO. We watching the video today or tomorrow? You talking about the one you sent? Well, how long is it? $34 minutes. Yeah, we'll watch that one tomorrow. That's what we'll do. Like as soon as the stream starts, we'll start with the video, and go ahead and just go from there because it'll be easier. I'm trying to think. Because now that we know, like, sitting here, like, you know, thinking about how it is, and like putting it all together in like a perspective, there's no way out of this loop. Like, as a human race, we stuck ourselves in this loop, and there's no way out of it. We're done, oh son. We are done. And that, my friends, is the tragedy and the tragic mismanagement of Earth. All right. I guess we'll go watch a video before I keep going too far. Because by this point, I'm rambling. You know who I blame. Don't say it. Just know it's their fault. Not as a human race, the system is operating exactly how it was designed. Keeps peasants working to funnel money to the rich. Now, whenever I say the human race fucked up, what I'm talking about is in the very beginning, when everyone was the same, and we all collectively got together and decided, hey, let's all put one guy in charge, because that's the smartest thing to do, and give him an ungodly amount of power, because that's the smartest thing to do. We fucked ourselves right then. Then that gave them the ability to collectively get together and then build this system that goes into like a spiraling loop that keeps the common man down while they continue to get richer and don't have to do anything they don't want to do, and blah, 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 and made the playing field unfair. It should always be like a council of people. I agree with that. I feel like everything should be like a council of people. But there can't be just two sides, though. There has to be two sides of something, and then there has to be a neutral in the middle that can't be swayed by either side. Because if the neutral in the middle can't be swayed by either side, and it has its likes for both sides, and it has its dislikes for both sides, then it would make it uneven deliberately. That way somebody could win. There would always be a tiebreaker. And they shouldn't be legally, and speaking of our own government, they shouldn't be legally allowed to shut shit down whenever they just decide they don't like something. Well, you know what? I'm working at the dollar store, and fucking Dan just pissed me off, so now I'm locking the doors, and ain't nobody coming in here to get shit. Because I'm mad at Dan, because I didn't like it that Dan didn't put product on the shelf. Fuck Dan. Now the doors are locked. Ain't nobody coming in this dollar store. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, dude. The whole, oh, well, we'll just shut it down. No, fuck you, dude. You want to shut it down? You can't work there no more. You gone. That wasn't a decision made by a human race. It was implemented by a small group while the rest of the human race was unaware. Dan is clearly a bitch. He can't whoop me. I agree that it was a decision made by a smaller group, but that smaller group had to have the approval of the human race to make sure that it worked. Because if everybody was like, I'm not listening to that guy, then he wouldn't have no power. So at some point down the line, we had to agree yeah, this guy's in charge. He's the one that should be in charge. We had to agree at some point that that guy should be in charge. You know what? Fuck it. Somebody's about to get their butt dug in. When the government shuts down, they're still good while the other people get fucked. Yeah, that's true, dude. They didn't need approval. They killed the ones who resisted. Dude, fuck that. Hell no. It's over. Don't threaten me with a good time, O'Shea. I just felt like at some point people had to agree because you had to have soldiers, so they had to agree, which they didn't agree because they truly believed that like these people belonged in power. They agreed to the massive amounts of money that they were offered at the time. So now you got soldiers because they agreed to the massive amount of money, so they'll do anything that you say. You got people that are scared not to agree because of the soldiers, and then you got people who agreed because they were ignorant. And then, yeah, you're right. You do have them people that disagreed completely and was like, I'm not listening to them, and then probably died in the process or was completely exiled and then died later on. That dude flexed because you wouldn't join his server. I don't even know who he was, dude. I was just trying to talk to him, ask him why. And fix the damn roads with the tax money. Some people just ain't got it. I guess not. Human race ain't got it either. All right, I'm done ranting about the human race. I'll rant about something else here in a little while. You need to fix a lot of things with the tax money. It could fix homelessness. All right, so have you ever like sat down and is anybody in here, and this is a legitimate question. This is not me being a smartass whatsoever. This is me actually asking because I would like to know. Has anyone in here ever sat down and thought about how to fix the homeless problem? Or fix hunger? Fix world hunger? Or just hunger in general for your own country? Has anyone ever like actually sat down and been like, how do we fix this issue? Deceived, not agreed. Hundreds of years ago, when nobody had a way to communicate, it was a 5-day walk to the next town. Oh, shit. Sounds goddamn terrible. Bro, I went to an ice cream place. I would say what you said, Squanchy, but I feel like YouTube would be like, oh, hell no. Bro, I went to an ice cream place, like in college area a month ago, and there was a protest, and the parents had like 7-year-olds protest, and those kids aren't even old enough to have their own thoughts about things they're protesting about. That's fucking ridiculous. That's what we've been doing, and it's working fabulously. Seriously, though, has anybody thought about how to fix the homeless problem? Or how to fix hunger in any kind of way? Because if so, I would like to hear it, and I'd like to talk about it. Also, I thought in the beginning, whenever the country started, maybe it wasn't when the country started, maybe it was just like a law at one point. I thought the government wasn't legally allowed to own land. Like, I thought the government couldn't, like, just own land or, like, come, like, buy property or seize property or however the fuck it works. I thought they weren't legally allowed to do that. But these motherfuckers own land all over the goddamn place. I know how to do it. Send $4 billion to Israel. There is a game, by the way, that we will be playing when it comes out. And it is called President Simulator. You get to create a person, you become president, and you get to make all the decisions. That includes war. That includes passing bills. That includes writing your own bills. That includes dealing with Congress. That includes talking to the media. Dude, it looks so fun, dude. I'm going to play the fuck out of that game. I saw a college-age protester with a sign with an ice cube crossed out. I want to go buy a bag of ice and give it to him. What the fuck, dude? Give people a UBI. If they want luxuries, they can work for them. It should be free to have a roof and food over your head. Or a fucking roof over your head and food. So, I do agree with that. I think, but with the UBI though, I feel like by that point your job and stuff should be like a community based job. You know what I'm saying? Because like I mean nothing is free, and if you want a universal basic income, then you should do like community style jobs, like for the town you work in, not have to like leave and go somewhere else, but like a community service style, like you would clean up trash off the sidewalks, or like you would help like mow like around town, or help weed eat, or do something of that kind of work, and it not last very long, because like mowing only lasts for so long if you're doing it for the city. Like let's say you're going to town, you're mowing and stuff, it only lasts to like maybe up until like fall, and then the rest of the year you're just drawing your universal basic income. The taxes we pay could do it right now, and I mean, and it should, but like I said, like the jobs that come with getting the universal basic income should be like a community service based job. Now they can't force you to stay longer, but like it should be a community based job where like you have to work like a minimum of at least 4 hours, anywhere between 4 to like 8 hours a week. Without having to do any extra or anything like that. I think that that's how it should go. Like it should be like a community service kind of thing, and you get a universal basic income. But you do community service. What time you plan on ending the stream? I'm about to watch my brother's baseball game. I'm hoping to watch some more afterwards. I'd be down. I would too. I would absolutely go do like community-based service. I probably won't end the stream for a while tonight, considering it's Friday, and I feel like there's gonna be quite a few people like on RP, and we got some videos and stuff I want to watch anyway. Well, a video I want to watch. So I probably won't end it for a while. I'll probably sit in here and hang out for a good while. But yeah, I'd absolutely love to do like a community based job that's only about, like I said, about 4 to 8 hours a week, and it's not that big of a deal. You don't technically, I guess you don't technically have a boss. You just kind of show up and you're like, hey, what do you need me to do? And they're like, oh, we're doing mowing today, or we're like cleaning up like trash alongside like the highway, or there's an old ass woman that draws disability and the city's rebuilding her house, and if you know how to do any kind of like carpentry, whether that be painting or like plumbing or electrical or any of that, and you have any like certifications or anything, like you're welcome to join in on this for 2 hours or some shit, and then like that's your pay. That would be cool. Grow, raise food, or have some physical worth trading, build, entertain, etc. Can't hunt without paying something. Can't grow food without paying for something. Money is the problem. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say money's a big issue. Money also causes human beings to act stupid too. I feel like if it wasn't for money, there would be way, way less crime. Like if there was a UBI and everybody was getting a universal basic income, and they were only doing like 2 hours worth of like labor, but they could comfortably afford food, and they had a roof over their head, and they still had like some money in their pocket to like kind of spend on a few smaller things. And then if they wanted to get like a regular job, that would add to the UBI, and then it would like allow them to live more like luxurious. I guarantee that crime would drop tremendously. Natives were around for hundreds of years. Villages were community-based, not currency-based. I feel like the Native Americans had a good thing going until we showed up. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They had a good thing going until we showed up. Once we showed up, shit went down the drain bad, and it didn't get no better. The shitheads got tarred and feathered and kicked the fuck out of the community. Jesus. So them boys went off somewhere to starve. I'm pretty sure there was a pretty large amount of Native Americans that were here in Kentucky. I mean, of course, like the Trail of Tears and whatnot, but like I'm saying, like relatively like civilized, like built like right on the side of like riverbanks and stuff like that. You know, people living on the inside. That shit was pretty cool. Like I've seen like little like drawings of how that was supposedly looked, and it was pretty cool, dude. I'll be back in a little bit. I'm gonna go eat. All right, Dan. Hold on just a second, boys. Oh, speaking of clips, it's easy now. Just hit exclamation mark clip, and the robot that's in here, Botrix, will automatically clip the last 30 seconds for you. Or I can do it too at the same time if you don't catch him, because mine's set for the last 60 seconds. But like, go ahead and just test it real quick. Just put exclamation mark clip, and we'll see what happens. Nobody needed 400 tomatoes a week, so they shared. I'm not a fan of socialism, but I feel like without money, it's harder for a few to control the main, or for a few to control the many. Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree with that statement. If there's no money, there's no way to control, because there's no way to like sway somebody. Because if everybody shares everything, then you don't have anything that no one else can offer this person. I am a big fan of socialism, but there's too much corruption in the world for it to actually work. I agree with that. You see how Botrix just clipped that? Exclamation mark clip. It just makes it so much easier. Automatically puts it on a page. You can go download it. Hell yeah. Oh! Oh! Oh, when we get an RP together, I'm going to kill the goddamn out of you. Just because you ain't been in it forever. Oh. Y'all know that apparently the dude from Jeepers Creepers, whatever, was supposedly real. Not the monster, like he didn't actually look like that, but like something to do with that story or whatever was supposedly like, kind of real. You're not wrong. I'll dig in your butt. You're not wrong. That's why socialism never works. Corruption. It turns into something like a pyramid scheme. Dude, what? Then why ain't there somebody there that looks at the dude and is like, all right, you're going to control this, but the first time you fuck up, bang. How come there's nobody there like that? It's just like, bro, I will kill the fuck out of you the first time you fuck up. This is my whole ass job, bro. Not if you make a bad decision, but the first time you do something corrupt, this is my whole job, bro. You're done. That's how villages worked. That's what China does. Ain't no way that's what China does. Because if it was, then that little Winnie the Pooh looking motherfucker would have been smoked a long time ago, bro. Money gives those people power and protection. No. Bang. Fuck that money. Money don't mean shit around this bitch. The problem with today is there's too many people willing to sell their souls for something that means nothing. That's the problem of today. That's the issue. I'm about to turn into one of them crazy dudes that wears a tinfoil hat that's always bitching. And I'm going to be complaining like a motherfucker about these type of people, dude. Bam. Horrors from an FBI database. Ah!
It's 1981. New President Ronald Reagan has just survived an attempt on his life. An emerging virus called HIV is becoming a growing concern, and workers at a wastewater treatment plant in Richmond, Virginia have just made a grisly discovery. An employee had been walking along the settling basin, a structure used to separate water from solid material, when he saw what appeared to be the body of a young woman. The police were called and the remains were recovered. The woman was young, short and slim, and had a tattoo on her arm reading, DR. A forensic analysis revealed that she had undergone a hysterectomy at some point in her life, which might point to pregnancy complications, treatment for ovarian cancer, or even darker, routine treatment at a psychiatric hospital in 20th century America. The hysterectomy didn't have anything to do with her death, however. That came about because of a bullet wound to the head.
Hell no.
Other than the surface level information, nothing else could be gathered to tell this young woman's story.
I think you did. I think you did send me this. And I kind of went on like a tangent after you sent this to me because it started recommending videos like this to me. And I kind of went on a tangent, just started like saving a fuck ton of them.
So, using 1981 technology, the police made a crude clay model of her head, depicting what she might have looked like before she passed to see if the public might be able to identify her. But nobody ever came forward. With no leads and nowhere to look, the police just stopped investigating. Life would go on the same as it did before. Nobody would ever grieve this woman. Her story would never be told and justice would never be served. She would never even have a name, only ever being referred to as the Richmond Jane Doe. And unfortunately, she's not a unique case. Currently, in the United States of America, there are more than 10,000 unidentified bodies. The idea of just coming across a body that never gets identified has to be one of the most disturbing concepts I can think of. In fiction, there's a common trope of an angry spirit haunting a place desperately trying to get somebody to tell their story.
10,000? I would think that there would be more than that. I mean, my God. There's a lot of people here, dude, in this country. You know what I mean? You would think that there would be like it would at least be like, I know it sounds terrible, but you think it would at least be like 25,000, like 15 up, you know?
Story. And these movies and books usually end with a tragic tale of their death finally being told, putting the ghosts at peace and allowing them to move on. Horror usually ends up being scarier than reality in most cases, but in this particular realm, reality is much darker than fiction. In real life, the body and the person that occupied it just stays lost forever. Their only memorials are scattered disconnected case files in different law enforcement agencies. In some cases, loved ones are desperately trying to get answers, unaware that the person they're searching for has already been found. But even darker than that, a lot of these people go unidentified because they've just been forgotten about, and the world callously moves on without them. When the Richmond Jane Doe briefly held the attention of law enforcement agencies in the early 1980s, criminal investigations mainly relied on traditional tangible evidence, like eyewitness accounts, fingerprints, and ballistics analysis, but a new movement had been gaining momentum. Instead of just looking for measurable evidence in individual cases, criminal profiling had police identifying characteristics of crimes that could point to the perpetrator's psychology in some way. This had law enforcement investigating previously overlooked aspects of crimes, like the degree of control used by the offender, the escalation of emotion in the act, and how organized or messy the crime scene was. Identifying these characteristics
Identifying these type of characteristics, that's where the profile on serial killers got built. Because a serial killer, you would be able to tell by like certain things that he had done in like his like previous kills. Like if he killed more than like a couple people, it was almost like ritualistic. Like he would either always clean it up, he would always like, you know, do something specific. He would like that's where like the profile started being built on these people. You could tell a lot about them too by these profiles.
allow police to not just categorize the sort of suspect they were looking for, but to also link different crimes together in a way they weren't previously able to using only traditional investigative techniques. But there was a problem blocking that last part from coming to fruition. Back in the early 1980s, law enforcement agencies were more or less working in isolation from one another. They all had their own specific procedures or paperwork and local files, and there usually weren't any protocols in place to share that information amongst themselves. This caused something called linkage blindness. If a serial offender committed a crime with striking signature characteristics and then went over to another county and did the same crime with the same signatures, those two cases wouldn't get linked together because the departments investigating them would be working in isolation. Even if they did share information, the documentation would be different and a lot of commonalities wouldn't be noticed because of that. This is what VICAP was intended to solve. In 1983, Los Angeles homicide detective Pierce Brooks would testify before Congress to advocate a radical new idea: a computerized database to track unsolved crimes that could be accessed by any law enforcement agency in the country. This database would be set up in such a way that the seemingly minute details of different crimes could be linked together, helping investigators make connections they wouldn't have previously been able to make. Brooks' idea was received enthusiastically, with the FBI fully picking up and funding the project. The database will be built and stored at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia in 1985, and while it may have started out with
That man showed up to Congress and told him about his idea. The FBI went, "Wow, hey, yo, yeah, that's a phenomenal idea."
thousands of different law enforcement agencies around the country having to mail in handwritten forms that would be digitized by hand in Quantico, the procedures would advance over time as the world became more connected, first through fax machines, and then through an interesting new technology called the internet. In the 2000s, the FBI would launch VICAP Web, a fully internet-based version of the database that could be instantly accessed and browsed by law enforcement agencies. While VICAP Web was and is only able to be accessed by verified law enforcement users, the FBI would also create a much more limited but publicly accessible version of the database, which you can browse through a website hosted by the FBI. When we talk about things that are scary on this channel, there's usually two categories. Fictional horror tends to be very dramatic and solely relies on artistic elements like aesthetics and storytelling to create fear. It's by design calculated in its delivery. Real-life horror, on the other hand, is never calculated. It's not art designed to strike fear in you, yet it always does a much better job of that than fiction. The FBI's VICAP site is a perfect example of that second category. It's just a cold list of unsolved crimes presented in a manner only meant to convey information in an efficient way and nothing more, but it still manages to be one of the most disturbing sights I've ever seen. Here you'll find the Richmond Jane Doe, as well as many other unidentified deceased people. The visual depictions of these individuals range from actual photos, to digital recreations, to physical recreations, to drawings, to even just articles of
That database, just from those few photos that he flipped through, looks fucking creepy as hell. And I don't ever want to be anywhere near that database, ever.
clothing in cases where the body is in such bad shape that clothes are the only remaining identifying traits. This entry is particularly unsettling. The only lead investigators have in this case is a single shoe. The remains were in such bad shape that even the victim's sex couldn't be determined. Like the vast majority of cases here, this one remains unsolved. I find it interesting how VICAP sits beside the FBI's top 10 most wanted lists on their website, as these two pages feel like yin and yang. The top 10 most wanted are a list of perpetrators of crime they're actively trying to catch. Or in other words, stories they're trying to put resolutions to. VICAP is a list of victims of crime they're trying to identify. Or rather, resolutions they're trying to put stories to. The two sites feel like binary opposites. Another thing you'll notice on VICAP is how unsettling a lot of these photos look, even completely separated from their chilling contexts. These reconstructions often fall into the uncanny valley, with the people they're depicting looking almost real but not quite, leaving any viewer unsettled. A lot of these depictions look not unlike something you would see in some online horror project, but not everything creepy looking here is a reconstruction. On June 3rd, 1991, truck driver Eduardo Collin pulled into a Super 8 motel off of I-40 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He rented a room for 2 people for just one night, but the following morning, Eduardo never came to check out. After waiting an entire day, the motel eventually sent a security guard to check on Eduardo's room on June 5th.
Waiting an entire day? Bro, that motel got more patients than any of the ones I ever stayed at, dude. I stayed at one over in Branson, Missouri one time. Bro, I was 5 minutes late coming down there to do the checkout, and they was already up there banging on that motherfucker door telling me that they needed to clean that room. I needed to hurry up. I opened the door up. I'm like, bro, I'm packing my shit. No, they wasn't having it, dude. They was like, you got to hurry up. You got to go.
It had been locked from the inside, and the guard had to essentially break in using a screwdriver. When he finally got in, there was no one to be found in the main part of the room, just scattered bottles of alcohol. The bathroom was a different story though. In there, the security guard found a woman suspended in the air, hanging from a suitcase strap tied to the shower. She was dead. Investigators would determine her cause of death to be hanging, which was found to be self-inflicted, and had occurred on June 3rd, the night the room was rented. Even though she had only been deceased for 2 days, the shower had been running the entire time, and the extreme amount of moisture combined with the sweltering New Mexico heat greatly advanced the decay process, and her body was already in a state of putrefaction when she was found. She had heroin in her system, and judging by the fact police found a scale in the room, drugs may have played a part in this tragedy. Many questions hung in the air about this case, the most immediate of which being Eduardo's whereabouts. He was nowhere to be found. The license plate he had given to the hotel staff had been fraudulent. The front desk employee who had been working the night of June 3rd was able to give a physical description of Eduardo, which happened to fit a picture found in his room. This is a photo of the deceased woman while she was still alive. It appears to have been taken at one of those mall photo booths, and the police assumed that the other man in the photo was Eduardo. No one had seen this woman while she was still alive. She had no identifying marks on her body, and she didn't have any sort of ID on her. The only record of her ever having been alive in the first place was this eerie photo of her and this mystery man. Years would go by without any progress in this case. The effort would mainly be focused around finding Eduardo.
Cleaning lady was pissed, by the way. That photo is very fucking creepy. I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like, even if I seen that photo and it wasn't related to anything like this, it would make me feel uncomfortable. And I think it's because it's such low quality. Because, like, back then, when shit like that was taken and you see somebody doing something like that, like, it just made them look fucked up. And it just, I don't know, man. Like, now I feel like that look, like, knowing what happened to her and then knowing what that looked like will forever be burned into my brain.
Eventually, the police would manage to track down his immediate family, who let investigators know that Eduardo had passed away from natural causes while they were looking for him. When police asked family members if they had recognized the woman in this photo with Eduardo, they only reacted with confusion. The man in the picture was not Eduardo. Again, no progress would be made for an enormous amount of time, until 2021 when investigators actually managed to somehow track down the man in this photo. While his identity has never been released publicly, the police are not considering him a suspect in any possible crime. He also wasn't able to fully identify the woman, only telling police that she had come to Albuquerque from Los Angeles, that he only knew her as Becca. The initial and most common theory regarding this mystery is that Becca may have been a lady of the night. Also found in the room were 5 $100 bills, an oddly large denomination of money to be carrying around with you, especially in 1991. It would explain why she was with a truck driver at a motel and why she didn't have any ID. The police have also supposedly recovered more pictures of Becca while she was alive, but haven't released them publicly because of their supposedly explicit nature. Whether Becca was an escort or not ultimately doesn't matter. Investigators assume she was, and her case likely didn't get the attention it needed because of that. If Eduardo had been located before his own death years later, this case would have been solved more than 20 years ago. But he wasn't, so it just remains as one of the many eerie entries in VICAP. If you're interested in helping on this case, I really recommend checking out the Becca Doe subreddit, which was set up with the specific purpose of investigating this case. And you can also check out the Grateful Doe subreddit, which
I don't know if any of y'all ever like go on Reddit or do anything like that, but like some of them Reddit, some of those Reddit mystery things where they're on there talking about some of that shit gets like interesting as hell. I mean, you could really, really get into that kind of shit if you're sitting there like reading about it, and they got mysteries about everything. I think one of the biggest ones that I watched was the dude that supposedly found the little piece of the UFO that was out in the desert. It turned out to be fake as hell, but Reddit went nuts about it, dude. They had that shit looking and sounding like a movie, son.
is intended for all unidentified people cases. Believe it or not, internet sleuths are not just good for finding lost media. Grateful Doe has actually directly linked a couple unidentified people to missing persons cases, and I'm sure they would appreciate your help. One thing I find interesting on VICAP is how the visual reconstructions vary in look depending on when the case was open. Nowadays, detailed digital artistic recreations seem to be the standard, and while these sometimes can look uncanny, they really don't compare to the clay reconstructions you'll see in older cases. Some of these are genuinely nightmare fuel. They're made to resemble the victims as much as possible, but at the end of the day, they all still seem to end up looking somewhere in between life and death. I mentioned the Uncanny Valley earlier. One theory as to the origin of why the Uncanny Valley effect exists in the first place is fear of corpses. Humans may have an instinctual fear of dead bodies to keep us away from diseases that may harm us, and in my opinion, these unsettling clay models perfectly trigger that instinct. It would also seem, based on whatever on this site, that the worse condition a body is found in, the more uncanny the clay model looks. In May 1990,
Well, I mean, yeah, if you take, all right, so back then they're doing the clay model, so they're like physically sculpting this person, and all they got to go off of, if there's no photos, is this dead person laying here. So they make it look as close to that person as they can. So, I mean, yeah, I guess you get in the Uncanny Valley there, like they start looking dead. They sculpt them to look dead because that's what they look like whenever they was sculpting them. It is creepy though.
1992, a farmer in Boone County, Indiana, was working his fields just like any other day. As he worked his way to the edge of his property near the main road, he noticed something laying in the long reeds in the distance. He had a bad feeling and decided to not approach whatever was in front of him, and instead went back home to contact the police. When law enforcement came, they walked down from the road into the reeds, and there, they found the decayed body of a young woman. She wasn't wearing any clothes other than a tank top, and didn't have any noticeable wounds on her body that could point to an immediate cause of death. Her face was so badly decomposed that she was completely unrecognizable. The only distinguishable characteristics on her body were 2 tattoos, one that said, "Mom," and another that said, "Love." Investigators guessed that she was likely between the ages of 17 and 24, but other than that, there was no way to identify this woman, and she would be entered into the system as just one more Jane Doe. Without anything to go on, police would start combing through missing persons files in the local area to see if they could find any leads, but none were found. They started investigating nearby truck stops. Maybe this was another case that began with a trucker picking up an escort. After questioning countless workers and passing out flyers to the many people passing through these truck stops though, no leads were found. After a few weeks of investigation, the case was considered to be cold, and the woman would be given a pauper's grave next to the police station, with an eerie tombstone only reading, "Unidentified female." A year later, police would reach out to a professor at Michigan State University who had been making advancements in facial reconstructions. They exhumed the victim's body, which at this point was nothing more than a skeleton. Nevertheless, the professor did his best to recreate what Jane Doe may have looked like before her untimely death.
Okay, that's fucking scary looking. Real scary looking, dude. Ooh, hell no.
I looked through every entry on VICAP, and this was by far the most unsettling facial reconstruction I came across. I get that they likely didn't have much information to go on with the extremely poor condition of her head when they found her body, and they were just doing the best they could in what was at the time a still primitive field of forensic science, but I can't help but feeling a little unnerved every time I see this photo. The police would place this model in their lobby to see if anybody who passed through it may have any information, but nobody ever did. In 2018, they would use more modernized techniques to make a couple much less unsettling looking facial reconstructions, but these still didn't lead to any new developments. It would seem like the Boone County Jane Doe was just one in an endless line of unidentified corpses found in the USA who would never get their story told. But in 2020, that would change. You see, when they exhumed her body in 1993, police had luckily made sure to extract some of Jane Doe's DNA. And 27 years later, they sent it to a forensic genealogy firm for examination, and just over 1 year later, a match was found. In 1992, the Shinagovsky family in Toledo, Ohio were dismayed when their youngest daughter Maggie had seemingly vanished into thin air. While alarmed, they weren't entirely panicked. Margaret was about to turn 18, and all 7 of her older siblings had left home in a similarly swift manner around the same age, so why wouldn't she do the same? As time went on, they heard nothing from her though. The Shinagovskys' concern grew. They found that she had taken nothing from her room, which was messy and didn't look like how someone would leave their space before moving out. Maybe she hadn't just left home to start her life. Maybe something happened to her. Her siblings would drive around looking for her, but would come up empty-handed. It's unclear whether they filed a missing persons report or not, but for the next 28 years, Maggie's family had no idea if she was off living her life somewhere or if something horrible had happened to her. But in 2020, their worst fears were realized. Margaret had met an untimely end, likely before her family even began looking for her. As tragic as the situation is, it is.
God almighty, dude. That's a long fucking time not to know. From 1992, dude, to 2020, that is a long, long time not to know what happened to somebody. And it would be crazy too, dude, because it would hit you like a ton of bricks, and you would be so sad and depressed about it. But then you'd have to like keep reminding, and it would feel which obviously it is brand new to you, but it would feel so new to you. But you would have to like realize like this person's been gone for like, what do you say, 28 years, dude. Damn, and you're like for 28 years, you're thinking, I wonder what this person's doing, not knowing that they're like in the ground. That's fucking horrible, dude.
It's nice to see such stale cold cases still getting attention and even being solved almost 30 years later. Although you can't really say this one is fully solved. Police are treating Maggie's case as a homicide, and they're still looking for information that could lead them to whoever committed this horrible crime. Not every case gets solved because of cutting-edge forensic techniques. Sometimes they get solved because of VICAP. You might be wondering why the FBI decided to make a public version of this program. Well, that's because public interest has been a key part in getting these cases solved, and VICAP is a great way to publicize these mysteries. Our next case, though, believe it or not, was solved in no small part because of Reddit. It's June 26, 1996. Along US Route 58 in rural Virginia, the cars unrelentingly rocket by, each one passing through this liminal space without ever giving it a second thought. A highway is never a destination, it's only a means to get to one. For the occupants of a certain Volkswagen bus, however, this normally transient area would be where their stories would meet an abrupt end. Greensville County Police were called out to a tree line outside the expressway, where they found a van which had crashed head-on into the trees after seemingly veering off the road. Inside it were 2 young men. They were not wearing their seatbelts, and the high-speed collision had taken their lives. The driver was quickly identified as 21-year-old Michael Hargrove from South Carolina, and police believe the crash likely occurred because he had fallen asleep while driving, as there were no drugs or alcohol in his system. The other man in the car, though, was not carrying any ID, and on top of that, his face had been severely disfigured in the crash, making visual identification next to impossible. Police contacted Hager's family to tell them the bad news, and to also ask if Michael had been traveling with a friend. They said he wasn't, and they also didn't recognize his passenger. A theory developed that this man may have been a hitchhiker that Hager had picked up somewhere along his journey, possibly because of a shared interest. The mystery man had been wearing a tie-dyed shirt when investigators found him, and they also found 2 ticket stubs for a Grateful Dead concert that had occurred 2 nights prior. Hager had not attended the concert, but he was a Grateful Dead fan. It's possible the reason he stopped to pick up a random hitchhiker was because they were both deadheads, members of a counterculture movement revolving around the Grateful Dead. Also found on the man's body was a handwritten note. It read,
"To Jason, sorry we had to go. See you around. Call me. Carolyn O. and Carolyn T."
At the end of the note was a phone number that was unfortunately incomplete, making it impossible for investigators to follow up on, but it did give them one important clue. This man's name might be Jason. Unfortunately, this was the extent of the leads police had to work with at the time, and the case almost immediately went cold. Yet another eerie clay mock-up would be made along with the police sketch, and investigators would ask for the public's help in identifying who this man may be, but nothing would happen for another 17 years. In 2012, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children will make a better and more modern reconstruction of Jason's likeness, and the public would once again be asked for help. A subreddit would be created called Grateful Doe, which I already mentioned. Internet sleuths here would tirelessly search social media looking for matches. Eventually in 2015, some photos greatly resembling the reconstruction would be found. They were posted by the former roommate of the man in these pictures, who said his name was Jason. Unfortunately, the roommate couldn't remember his last name, but this was still an extremely promising lead. The roommate goes on to describe Jason as a laid-back teenager who was into surfing and the Grateful Dead. He had a lot of close friends, but sometime in 1995, he would just vanish without a trace. Mainstream news would start reporting on the story, and Jason's mock-ups and pictures would be shared far and wide on pretty much every social media site. And soon enough, a breakthrough would be made. Jason's last name was Callahan, and when he had turned 18 in 1995, he decided to leave his hometown of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to explore the country on his own. Eventually, he stopped contacting his mother, who had assumed that he had just started a life somewhere. He had come from a broken family, and it's not that unusual for children of divorce to estrange themselves from their parents. Unfortunately though, this wasn't the case for Jason Callahan, as his life was put to an end before it could really even begin. Like we talked about earlier, the Grateful Doe subreddit would be used after Jason's case was solved to help out with other cases of unidentified bodies, one of them being our final case for today. In October 1995, in the sleepy town of Brewster in New York State, the body of a middle-aged man would be found in the woods outside an abandoned schoolhouse. The police would be called out to investigate and quickly found evidence that this man had put an end to his life by his own hand. He had no identification on his body, but despite this, his face was still in perfect condition. You'll notice that this is the first case we've talked about today where the victim's face hasn't been disfigured in some way. This is rare. Usually a big reason why people can't be identified is because nobody knows what they might have looked like before they passed on. Investigators would have a much easier time making an accurate reconstruction in this case. And even more than that, this man has a very recognizable face. Surely someone would be able to recognize him, right? Well, someone did. 2 days prior to his body being found, a worker at a curtain shop had sold 2 expensive blankets to this man in the nearby town of New Rochelle. He was then seen taking the train to Brewster on the Metro North Railroad. Unfortunately though, these witnesses couldn't give any clues to this man's identity, and they were the only ones who ever came forward. Despite an extensive investigation and having a very accurate looking facial reconstruction, this John Doe has never been identified. The police have made numerous public appeals, the latest being a VICAP alert sent out in 2020, but no accurate leads have been found since the 90s. The main theory I've seen regarding this case is that this man possibly traveled from New York City to a small out-of-the-way place in a less populated area of the region to end his life, and purposely threw away his ID so he would never be identified. New Rochelle is on the way from NYC to Brewster, and the man is also considered to be of Latin American descent, with New York City having the state's most significant population of Hispanic people. The idea of traveling to an out-of-the-way place to put an end to your existence with the intention of never being found.
This reminds me of that dude from last night that traveled to a real far out of the way place. That old man just to pass away. Oh, by the way, I dug into his history for anybody that remembers that video from last night, and he like digging into his files and whatnot. I seen a thing where it said that he, like, it's been determined that he actually died of cardiac arrest. That dude in that last video said that they couldn't determine how he died, but his file says he died of cardiac arrest, though, son.
It's not just terrifying, it's also tragic. Everything you've ever done, every other life you've ever touched, your entire story gets boiled down and reduced to a physical thing, a corpse without a name. The VICAP site to me is not just the most chilling site the FBI has, it's probably the most unsettling site I've visited, period. Becoming unidentified is a very certain kind of terror, and I can't imagine the state of mind somebody would be in to purposely choose that as their exit. It goes without saying, but if you happen to recognize any of the 3 stolen solved John and Jane Does we talked about today, please make a post on the Grateful Doe subreddit. They know how to get in touch with investigators. I'll also restate something I said earlier. If you're into solving internet mysteries and looking for lost media, maybe consider joining Grateful Doe and help look for lost people as well. That's it for today, guys. Have a good night.
Why, hell yeah. W video. He's got a video called The Closest Thing to Hell in the USA. I'll watch that sometimes off stream. I'll see what that's like. All right. Well, goddamn, boys, who's still alive in here? Hello. All right, Dan. Bad, I'm deep in a project. I want to stream late tonight, but I don't have really like anything of like interest today. Does that make sense? Um I don't really know how to like describe it. Like I said, I don't have much of I don't have too much to talk about. Let me put it like that. Not today, anyway. And so I'm about to We'll go ahead and end her there, boys. I love y'all. Don't pawn anything that don't belong to you. Don't microwave metal. And I'll be back tomorrow, and maybe I'll write down some like I don't know, some fucking maybe I'll write down some like some points or something. I don't know. We'll just try to find a way to how do you describe it? I don't know. Fuck, I'm lost for words, dude. I got flu B. I can't even think right. Pookie the fuck? What are you talking about? Are you getting on RP? Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna try to. Bro just froze. I did, dude. I don't have anything to say. I love you too, brother. You all you boys have a good night, man, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow.